This video is titled, Masturbation Will Distort the Normal Size and Shape of the Face. According to Happy Theory, masturbation will make a human being blind and crippled. Masturbation will also affect the human body in many other ways. One of the other ways that masturbation affects the human body is to distort the normal size and shape of the face. The exact way in which masturbation will distort the size and shape of the face depends on exactly how the individual performs the act of masturbation. Some of the factors that influence the way that masturbation will change the size and shape of the face include the frequency of masturbation, the percentage of an individual's life they have been masturbating for, which hand is used for masturbation, and whether the hand is held palm up or palm down during masturbation. According to Happy Theory, each different way that masturbation can be performed will produce a unique pattern of distortion in the size and shape of the face that is different from all of the other unique patterns of facial distortion associated with each of the other possible ways that masturbation can be performed. The reason that each different method of masturbation will induce a unique pattern of distortion in the normal size and shape of a human face is that each different method of masturbation will generate a specific combination of physical forces within the body that the body will react to in a predictable way that can be determined using the principles of engineering and the laws of physics. Understanding how the principles of engineering and the laws of physics can be used to calculate exactly how the physical forces generated by each different method of masturbation will change the human body can be simplistically visualized as follows. The specific combination of physical forces generated by each different method of masturbation can be visualized as producing a unique set of numbers that are different from the sets of numbers produced by each of the other different methods of masturbation. Because the numbers associated with each method of masturbation are different, when they are inserted into the various mathematical equations used in engineering and physics, they will of course produce different answers, which would represent the different patterns of facial distortion caused by each different method of masturbation. The fact that each different method of masturbation will induce a unique pattern of distortion in the normal size and shape of the face can be used to deduce the specific method of masturbation an individual uses by examining the pattern of distortion exhibited by their face. Once an individual learns the unique pattern of facial distortion associated with each different method of masturbation, the individual can then examine the pattern of distortion exhibited by a particular face and conclude which method of masturbation must have caused the unique pattern of distortion exhibited by the face being examined, confident in the knowledge that the principles of engineering and the laws of physics can be used to prove that the conclusion is correct. Here is an example face with a large amount of visible distortion. The left eye is smaller and darker than the right eye. The mouth is slanted up to his left, and the nose looks like it has shifted off to his left. The pattern of distortion exhibited by this example face is the typical pattern of facial distortion caused by right-hand masturbation. Spotting distortions of the face and patterns of distortion in the face can be made easier by drawing an X on the face, as demonstrated in this picture. The X separates the face into an upper quadrant, a lower quadrant, a right quadrant, and a left quadrant. Separating the face into 4 quadrants can make the distortions in a particular quadrant more visible, and the distortions in the face can now be categorized by which quadrant they are located in, which can help in spotting trends or similarities in the various facial distortions exhibited by the face. While each quadrant of this example face does exhibit some amount of distortion, the left quadrant of the face exhibits the largest amount of distortion. It was previously stated that the pattern of distortion exhibited by this face was an example of the facial distortion caused by right-hand masturbation. If that statement is accepted as fact, because the majority of the distortion in this example face is in the left quadrant of the face, it would be reasonable to reach the preliminary conclusion that masturbation with the right hand most strongly distorts the left side of the face. If that preliminary conclusion is correct, then that relationship would be the basis for initially suspecting that any face that exhibits a majority of distortion in the left quadrant of the face would most likely be a face that had been distorted by right-hand masturbation. This second example picture exhibits undeniable signs of facial distortion. The left eye looks smaller than the right eye, the mouth slants upwards to his left, and the nose looks like it has shifted slightly to his left. An X is then drawn on the second example picture. Although each quadrant of the face does exhibit some distortion, the majority of the distortion in this face is located in the left quadrant of the face. If the preliminary conclusion reached in the first example, that right-hand masturbation is associated with distortion of the left side of the face, is applied to the current example, because the majority of the distortion in this face is in the left quadrant of the face, it is most likely that this face has been distorted by right-hand masturbation. The third example picture also exhibits undeniable signs of facial distortion. The left eye looks almost completely closed compared to the right eye, the mouth is slanted upwards towards his left, and the left cheek has a large depression under it that is not apparent under the right cheek. An X is then drawn on the third example picture. Although each quadrant of the face exhibits some distortion, the majority of the distortion is in the left quadrant of the face. If the preliminary conclusion reached in the first example is applied to the third example, because the majority of the distortion in the third example face is in the left quadrant of the face, it is most likely that the third example face has been distorted by right-hand masturbation. The fourth example picture is a case of relatively minor facial distortion. The left eye looks different than the right eye, there is a slight upward tilt to the mouth, and there is a slight change to the nose. The fourth example then has an X drawn on it. Although each quadrant does exhibit some distortion, the majority of the facial distortion is located in the left quadrant of the face. If the preliminary conclusion reached in the first example is applied to this fourth example, because the majority of the distortion in the fourth example is in the left quadrant of the face, it is most likely that this face has been distorted by right-hand masturbation. The next picture shows a man who has no right hand. His left eye is bad, the left side of his face shows some relatively minor distortion, and his head is tilted to his right. The face of the man with no right hand looks similar to the faces of the other example men. This similarity presents a problem for the claims of this video. This video claimed the faces of the first four men were distorted in the way that they were as a result of right-hand masturbation. The fifth example face exhibits facial distortion similar to the first four men, but the fifth man has no right hand. Because the fifth man has no right hand to masturbate with, the distortion on the left side of his face cannot be due to right-hand masturbation. What conclusion could be reached from the similarities between the face of the individual with no right hand and the faces of the individuals who masturbate with their right hand? One possible conclusion would be that right-hand masturbation changes the human body so it acts like it does not have a right hand. Although the physical hand is still there and can be used to some degree, the rest of the body reacts as if the right hand is missing. According to happy theory, that conclusion is correct. Masturbation will cause the atrophy or shrinkage of the masturbating arm and hand. Even though the physical hand is still there and can be used to some degree, the body will behave as if the hand is missing. A claim which is supported by the fact that the face of an individual who masturbates with their right hand looks similar to the face of the man with no right hand.